Hey, what's that little thing on there? On the dash? I hear Mikey ask from the passenger seat next to me. What's it even supposed to do? I think it's one of those old radar detectors. Supposed to become cops using those little radar speed guns. I think they mostly went away when the cops switched to lasers. I tell him as I continue to stare straight ahead. Now turn that light off, it's hurting my eyes. Oh, sorry, my bad. He says as he clicks the light off. Old car, huh? Yep. Nice though. You don't make them like this anymore. I answer with a grin as my hands tighten around the steering wheel. Hey, Mikey. Remember Ma's old car? The shitty Oldsmobile? The black one with all the paint flaking off? Never really knew if it's even start up or not. Oh yeah, sure. Hard to forget. That time she took the corner too fast and that heavy-ass door just flew open and almost threw you out in the middle of the road? That thing was a trash heap. We had a lot of memories in it too. Mikey says with a sigh as he rests his head on the window. I think I lost my virginity in that thing. I think Ma lost her virginity in that thing. I joke as I pretend to adjust the radio that probably hasn't worked since Bush was in the White House. We'd go on those long road trips, and you and me would fall asleep in the back to the sound of Ma arguing with the old man about what direction he'd be going. I think out loud as I keep my eyes forward. He'd sooner never be heard from again than stop and ask for directions. I think I went on my first date in that car. A girl had to drive me home. Got drunk and puked on the side of it. Mikey laughs as he lets a quick grin escape, just for a second. Never saw her again after that. Don't blame her though. That much vomit, I'd run for the hills too. You talking about that blonde girl with the ring through her nose? Yeah, that's the one. You really remember her? Mikey asked, rolling his head over to look at me. That was like forever ago. Mm-hmm. Saw her a couple of weeks ago at the gas station. She's about 50 pounds and 3 kids heavier. Still kinda cute though. Yeah, that's probably for the best. She'd probably have to jump around in the shower to get wet when I knew her. He chuckles, turning his head back to the window. I really liked it though. Shame how that fell apart. Yeah, that drinking really didn't do you any favors over the years, did it? I asked him as I think back to all the calls I got about him getting drunk and falling into trouble in the middle of the night, or running around with the wrong man's old lady. It certainly did not, he admits with a heavy sigh. But you'd always show up, bail me out, and drive me to get something in my stomach to suck up the alcohol. You didn't have to, you know. You could have just left me to deal with it on my own. Nobody would blame you if they knew how I was. Yeah, what kind of brother would I be if I didn't show up when you needed me? I tell him, reaching over and patting him on the shoulder. And I wouldn't have traded those late night drives for anything in the world. You spent a lot of time in cars over the years, huh? Mikey asks, his head still on the glass. A lot of time. More than I'd have liked. But it wasn't all bad. I answer, still anxiously playing with the radio dial. But no matter what, my mind just couldn't settle down. Hey Mikey, what was the restaurant we went to that one time? That joint with the cheap seafood. You talking about the shack? That little hole in the wall with all the fish and shit all over the walls, like a nautical Cracker Barrel or something? Yeah, that's the one. Big plate of crab legs for next to nothing. I say to him as I think back to the last time we actually went out to eat together. And the lobster. Oh, don't get me started on the lobster. Now you gotta take out a loan just to get one of the little ones. I never got the appeal. There's a lot of work for a tiny bite of food, you know? He asks, still leaning his head against the window. Sharp little shells all over the place just to eat some kind of water roach? No thank you. Yeah, you just gotta practice. Gets easy as you go. I chuckle for the first time in a while. Once you get the system down, everything gets a lot smoother. Yeah, but still, they look too much like bugs. Like giant spiders and shit. I'll stick to chicken strips and french fries, he says with a little bit of a laugh of his own. You know, all reliable. As he says that, I can feel my mind start to wander all on its own. To think about how every point in our lives had just the result of an uncountable series of events that might not even seem all that important at the time. Like how just holding the door for someone can change the entire course of your life and you never even know it. I think about how even a thought can start the snowball rolling down the hill until it builds up into something that's completely out of your control. Into something that, no matter how much you might want to take it back, you can't. Then that thought leads to another. I begin to wonder how much control we ever really have. Like how someone might make some random comment that reminds you of a snack from your childhood. Then you gotta go find that snack. Or maybe on the drive to the store, a kid runs out in front of you and you run the kid over. If that person had never reminded you of that stupid snack, you'd have never gotten in the car at that specific time and drove down that specific road and hit that specific kid. It wasn't even you who put the idea in your head. You didn't have control over that. Well, that you already had the memory knocking around up in there in your brain. What about if things getting smaller, like the molecules and atoms and all that stuff? What kind of control do any of us even have in the end? What can we really say we're responsible for, if you add up all those individual events together? The thoughts just keep rolling as I stare ahead through the car's windshield. Hey Mikey, if you were on death row, what would your last meal be? I suddenly ask as my fingers clench the wheel. Damn, that's kind of morbid, don't you think? He asks back as his head finally leaves the window. What's the matter? Just curious. Like it's the last thing you ever get to eat. You still sticking with goddamn chicken strips and fries? After thinking for a little while, he answers. Nah, I think I might do something hard to find. Give myself a little extra time. Like an endangered lizard that's really hard to catch. Yeah, I don't think the penal system is going to go that far to accommodate you. You might have to be a little more reasonable. You know, like really expensive chicken strips or something. I joke as I glance over at him. I don't know, roast duck maybe? I never had that before, but I got the suspicion that it's probably alright. He thinks out loud. Something like baked potato with it. Sounds good to me. So instead of chicken and fries, you're asking for duck and baked potato. As long as it's some bird and some form of potato, you're happy, huh? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, he says with a shrug. How about you? What would you pick? I think I'd do it fancy. Like one of those really expensive Japanese steaks I'm always hearing about that costs a couple $100 a piece. Thick cut, medium rare. One of those root beers in a cold mug. Man, that sounds good. I say as I run my fingers across the wheel and imagine I'm on my way to the best restaurant in town to eat that exact meal. Get there and walk through the front door in a nice suit. Every head turns to look at me. What a night that would be. You're talking a lot more than you usually do, you know? Mikey mumbles as he leans his seat back. You like to be the strong, silent type most of the time. Always up against the wall with your arms crossed like you're Billy Badass. Yeah, just trying to take my mind off everything. Just saying whatever comes to mind, I guess. I'll shut up if you want. Nah, it helps me too. Keep talking if you feel like it. He tells me as he lays back in the seat. What else we got to do, right? If you say so. You know, the other day I was down at the pier. You remember when we go down to the lake? I ask him as I wipe the sweat from my hands on my jeans. Oh yeah, we go down there to try and meet girls, but we're too shy to talk to them, so we just pretend we were too cool to be interested in any of them. Like if we ignored them, they'd come over and talk to us instead. Only time we ever left with a girl was the one that asked for a ride home, remember? Oh yeah. We drove around for 2 hours because she couldn't figure out how to get to a goddamn house. I chuckle. We used to be pretty decent guys back then, didn't we? We sure did. What do you think happened? Mikey asked from his place next to me. Ended up being a couple scumbags in the end. We figured out being decent doesn't get you nearly as far as not being decent. Guess about the time we realized we couldn't pay rent with goodwill or eat that warm, fuzzy feeling that being nice gets you, I answer. Looking back, though, probably should have just kept being decent. Ha! Yeah, no shit. I hear him laugh from just out of sight as my hands tighten around the steering wheel. Got some good stories out of it, though. Sure it did. Definitely always had the best stories to tell. Like that time the dog busted us at the border and we jumped out and took off. How the hell we not get caught? We had some legs on us back then, Mikey says as he starts to crack up a little. If we didn't catch the truck right as we was taking off, they would have had our asses, though. Oh yeah, the truck. I forgot about that. I tell you, it wasn't fun explaining why we left 50 grand worth of cocaine sitting at the border. And then there was that time at the docks. Remember that? I ask as my mind wanders from one old memory to the next. Like something out of a goddamn movie. Big deal goes bad, bullets flying left to right. And the guy with the unibrow shot his own shoe off. We barely got out of there before the cops showed up. You mean when the bullet bounced off the shipping container and hit me in the fucking hip? Yeah, somehow I've managed to retain that one, Mikey answers sarcastically. I actually pissed myself that night and you couldn't stop laughing about it all goddamn night. Don't be like that, it was a ricochet. Didn't even break the skin. You just don't want to let that go. Didn't have to. Left a goddamn bruise the size of a basketball on my thigh. I was limping around for almost a whole month. Ricochet or not, I got shot, he argues, shifting the blame. Hey, I've been thinking. What comes next for us? You know, after this? The question I hoped he wouldn't ask makes my stomach clench uncomfortably as the words reach my ears. For a while I can't speak as I just keep gripping the steering wheel and looking straight ahead. Eventually I give in and say, I can't say for sure. Something better, at least I hope. And the words catch in my throat as I sit there and silently wait for him to say anything back. But after a while of him not saying anything, I speak again. It's gonna be okay, Mikey. I'm gonna take care of this, don't you worry, I tell him, which finally gets him to raise his seat back up. What? How? He asks, almost in tears himself. You shouldn't even be here right now. If you just minded your own business, then left me alone. It'd just be me in this car. You'd be at home watching some stupid TV show or something. You know I couldn't do that, I say to him with a smile. Yeah, you could. You shouldn't have to. This was all me. I just really thought this was a sure thing this time, he says to me as his voice starts to crack. If you just... He tries to say but can't even finish the sentence. Mikey, look. I'm here with you because it's where I choose to be. Yeah, maybe stealing 500 large from the nastiest drug kingpin on the East Coast wasn't the best idea you ever had. And maybe convincing his wife to run away with you rubbed a little too much salt in the wound. But I know who you are. Don't change that you'll always be my little brother, I tell him as I feel a tear run down my cheek. No sooner do I finish my sentence do I hear a sharp ping from outside the car. Is it gonna hurt? Mikey asks as his voice begins to tremble. No. Oh no. I told you I'm gonna take care of everything, remember? I tell him as I hold my arms out. Come on, bring it in, I say as I wave him in for a hug. Then, as he leans in, I take the chance to grab his shirt and pull him close enough to get my arm around his neck. He tries to struggle, but by the time he realizes what's happening, it's already too late. I feel my elbow slip under his chin and start to squeeze. I feel tears pouring down my face as I remember him waking me up on Christmas morning and dragging me half asleep into the living room. I remember him being beside me as we ride bikes up and down the neighborhood. I remember us at birthday parties blowing out candles, and I remember us fighting over video games. I remember sitting in the waiting room at the hospital when he broke his arm at the park. I feel his fingernails dig into the skin of my arm as his feet kicked out the window. But it's already too late. I can feel him start to slip away as the sound of kicks die down and his grip on my arm loosens. As he starts to slip away, I remember when our parents brought him home from the hospital after he was born. "I'm sorry, Mikey. I'm so sorry," I tell him, but he can't hear me anymore. He's already completely still by then. But I keep squeezing just to make sure. "I'm sorry," I say one more time as I let his limp body fall from my arms. "I don't know what comes next, baby brother, but I hope you're waiting there for me, whatever it is," I tell his lifeless body. My hands tighten around the steering wheel one last time as the sound of hydraulic motors begin to roar from outside the car. It doesn't take long after that before the steel panels reach the thin metal of the car. My chest starts to seize up as I fight for every breath. The panic begins to set in as the whole thing begins to crumple and twist around me. I squeeze my eyes tight and wait for the compactor to do its job.